Welcome to The Thriving Entrepreneur, where high performance and business strategy blend almost as perfectly as crepes and Nutella. Grab your headphones and your favorite flavored latte and tune in weekly as we talk about business, personal development, marketing, mindset, and everything in between. And now, your host, high performance coach, business strategist, and chocolate addict, Yasmin Inal.
Hey Thrivers, welcome to another episode of The Thriving Entrepreneur. I am so excited that you're tuning in. This is Yasmin Inal, your host. And today joining me, I have a very special guest, a good friend that I have, made a connection with over the last year, Dr. Amy Cannatta. She's an international coach, innovative life strategist, #1 international best-selling author for her book titled Pursepective, From Ruin to Resilience, podcast host and blogger for the Huffington Post. She is passionate about teaching you how changing your perspective can turn tragedy into personal transformation, focusing on resilience, perseverance, and positivity. She has personally developed a signature coaching program using her D.R.E.A.M framework, which we will dive into. The same strategies she used herself to transform from domestic abuse victim to victor, doctor, and entrepreneur. Her personally developed coaching programs that combine her expertise as an intuitive holistic chiropractor, business owner, and life coach. When she's not getting caught red-handed with her hand on her secret stash of Sour Patch Kids or getting glares from her teenage daughters for dancing around the kitchen, she can be found enjoying nature. What a lovely, lovely intro, bio. Thank you so much for being here, Amy. Such a pleasure and an honor to have you on the show.
Oh my gosh, it is an honor and pleasure to be here. I'm very excited to dive in today. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I want, you have such an amazing, interesting background. You're a doctor by profession, right? You recently became a full-time entrepreneur and, you're an author, a coach. I mean, we listed all of those amazing credentials. And to top it off, you have a beautiful heart. That's one thing that I've noticed, watching you over the year, your videos, you show up so naturally with your big heart, with your beautiful smile. And it just, that's how I connected with you, because I was able to, resonate with your message and just really hear it. And it really touched my heart. So I want to honor you for that and just, congratulate you on your success and continued success. So I want you to take us all the way back to, the beginning. I mean, to times that you were not maybe thriving, to, like how this entrepreneurial journey began for you.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, is this a 3-hour podcast?
Sure.
Oh my gosh. First of all, I'm humbled that you noticed my heart, because that's really, I think, the most important part of a human being is their heart and soul. So the fact that resonates and that shows up in the world, to me is really, I'm like, wow, thank you for noticing that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it's funny, I'll tell you a really quick story. My heart started showing up actually in kindergarten. My mom she tells everyone this story about my very first day of kindergarten, which is this. The very first day of kindergarten, I went around, it was like, we had kindergarten, and basically you start the day with recess. It was like outside on the playground, and then they would, ring the bell and you're all supposed to come in. So my very first day of kindergarten, I spent the entire time going around and hugging every single kid, introducing myself to every single kid. And that's kind of like that unfiltered part of my soul is just like, I just want to make everyone feel warm and welcome, regardless of your background, regardless of who you are, regardless of whether you're rich or poor, whatever. Like that is me. So that's the essence of who I am at my core. And I would say over the years, that from circumstances in life kind of getting in the way, that part of me became very stifled and cut off.
Mm.
And I'll kind of get into that. And really when that started was when my parents decided when I was 8 years old that they were going to move from where we were in a kind of mid-sized city in Connecticut to very, very rural farm.
Wow.
Which was a big difference for me. Like it was,
Sure.
I was used to being like, okay, I was the kindergarten superstar. I was doing solos on stage. I was like at a high point in my life. And then my parents were like, oh no, we're moving to the country. And I was like, it just didn't go over really that well with me. So I rebelled. I cut my hair. I cut all my hair off, super short. I became a tomboy, started getting into fights with boys and just being very aggressive because I was angry.
I can't picture you like that.
No, nobody can. Nobody can. So that's part of my resilience started then. And honestly, like fast forward, I started my first entrepreneurial gig was actually selling cosmetics when I was 18 for a pretty large, well-known cosmetic company. And I've been, honestly, I've probably started more businesses than I have had successful businesses, just in trying to figure out who I am and what my purpose and what my call to greatness is in this world. And now I've finally found it. So here we are.
I love it. It's so amazing. It's so amazing. So eventually you obviously left the countryside, correct? And then moved to a bigger city probably when you were older?
I did. When I was actually not that much older, when I was 18. Well, first of all, when we moved to the farm, like I was like at 8 years old, I remember thinking, what can I do to get out of here?
Like, get a horse and ride back to the city.
What can I do to get out of here? I knew I was destined for more. And my family was like, why isn't this good enough for you? What? And I'm like, yeah, it's not that it's not good enough for me. It's that I want something different for my life. It's not more, it's just different. I knew I wasn't meant to be there. So my way out, or at least this is what I thought, was to become a super high achiever in high school. So I became the super high achiever, class vice president and prom queen and on this thing and that thing and honor society, this other stuff. Because I saw that I saw my grades as my way out.
As your gateway.
That was my gateway. I'm like, if I can do really well in school and get into college, that'll be my gateway. Only when I turned 18, my parents said, we're on like a farmer's salary. You're going to have to figure college out yourself. And so I started out actually at a community college because that's all I could really afford to do. And after a year, I dropped out of college. Straight A student, dropped out of college. And decided that I was going to move 500 miles away from living in Connecticut to living in Western New York.
Wow.
With a guy I knew 6 months. So I ended up marrying and having kids, and that's a whole other story.
Yeah.
But that was like my first way out. That was really the first part of my journey.
Very, very interesting. That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay. So now you mentioned, which is great. You kind of, as you were telling your story, you were like, well, I started my entrepreneurial journey selling cosmetics, which is great. I think we all have most people have those stories where they kind of start some business and they sell something or, they do something, right? But what made you, now you studied afterwards, right? You went back to school, obviously, because you're a doctor and you studied, you became a chiropractor. What sparked your interest into going back to that entrepreneurial route in a way, those roots?
Well, I wish I had this I had this epiphany moment, this happy, I was on, top of a mountain somewhere and it just came to me. The fact
or this breakdown or something, right? Some people either have that victory or the
breakdown. That's what I'm going to get to. It's like, basically I woke up at 29 years old. I had, at that point in time, my daughters were, 3 and 1 year, 1 years old. And my grandmother had just passed away. My grandmother basically raised me, and she's actually the reason I'm went into chiropractic. She was a nurse. She believed in chiropractic, and she passed away. And when that happened, that was my first, one of the many turning points in my life. I said, gosh, Amy, you're working a minimum wage job. You have so much more. You have a brain. You used to get good grades. What are you going to do with your life now?
Yeah.
So that was my turning point. And I remember when I told my family, I told my then husband, I said, we're moving back to Connecticut and I'm going to go to school to be a doctor. And this is how it's, this is what I want. This is what I want to do for me and for our family. And I remember like my parents were like, are you crazy? Like that? Are you insane? Like, first of all, the school's like an hour and a half away from where we live. And it's like, and it's 40 hours a week. And are you like, why don't you just go to massage school? Like that's like a year. That's like the
settle for this thing.
Yeah. And I'm like, but that's not what I want to do. And so that's part of like, that goes back to like the 8-year-old rebellious girl, like finally like, no, I'm standing up for myself. This is really what I want to do.
Actually, I love that you're mentioning this. To me, it's not rebellious, it's courageous. Most people, unfortunately, they think that when you kind of question the status quo or when you go beyond what other people expect of you or the societal norms, that you're rebellious, right? That's what happens to us. I was always called the rebel, like always doing things to challenge what my parents thought or whatever it was. And then at the end, I realized after diving into high performance coaching that it's actually courage that allowed me to do that. It wasn't rebellion. It was that courageous heart that was, that knew something more existed and was willing to go and get it no matter what. Right? Would you agree?
I would really agree. And I think that is exactly where, it's like, I talk a lot about resilience and you have to have courage to be resilient. You just, that's like part of it.
Yeah. I love it.
And it's funny because I was watching the Steve Jobs movie, and talk about someone who constantly was challenging the status quo and constantly like, no, this is the way we're, I believe in my heart and soul. And a part of that, I think that's part of it. Part of the courage is believing in your heart and soul. Not just thinking it, but really knowing it from a deep down core. Like, I know this is going to work.
It's powerful. It's powerful. So you moved to Connecticut with your husband, your girls in tow, correct? They were little and you started school to become a chiropractor?
I did. Yep.
Okay. And then what happened? I'm just dying to know what. Yeah.
Well, and then my first year into chiropractic school, I tell this story quite often. It was May 21st, 2002. I was taking final exams. It was my last final exam for chiropractic school. And I was sitting there taking my exam, filling in the little bubbles with the number 2 pencil. Like, we've probably all done at some point in our lives, the standardized testing. And started hearing sirens, and that wasn't really that unusual. I went to school in Connecticut. It was like one of the top 5 like crime cities. It wasn't, so it wasn't abnormal to hear sirens on a daily basis, but they kept getting louder and louder to the point that they were deafening and no one in the room could concentrate. So I look up and one of my friends is at the front of the room talking to the professor. And they were both staring, like we made eye contact and they both like nodded their heads. And I was like, oh, this is not a good sign. And I was like, and I pointed to myself, like I was like kind of looking around and then I was like pointed to myself and they're like, and I'm like, oh no, they're like, this has to do with me. So I quickly finished my test and went down, ran down the stairs, handed my test in, and I went out the door with my friend. And there was just this, it was like, I got hit with this shock of like, just there's this wall of windows in the building that I was in. And you walk out and it's like, oh my gosh, it looks like a crime scene. And there was cops everywhere and they were like running around and everything like that. And At that moment in time, my entire life was all the secret baggage that I had been hiding for the last, I guess at that point it was 9 years, came all out in the open. It was as if it was as if you had this, like the airport security took your suitcase and just rifled through everything and saw all your, embarrassing, unmentionable things. That's how I felt. It was like total humiliation. And all of my secret life had been exposed. And the secret that I was keeping from everyone was that I was involved in a domestically abusive situation.
Wow.
And I had been hiding it. I had been hiding it behind high achievement. I've been hiding it behind going through the daily motions, behind, I'm going to be a doctor. I'm going to mask this with a fancy title. It was a lot of that. But at that moment in time, I don't want to focus on how humiliated and ashamed I was, because at that moment in time, there was a switch that got flipped inside of me, which was the switch was this. It was, as I sat there, I was literally in the fetal position in this hallway, and there was like 3 or 4 police officers kind of like hovering over me, like they wanted to ask me questions, and I was just crying at that moment.
Wow.
So things switched inside me.
I'm dying to know here. Like literally since the beginning of the story, you got me. I'm like all ears.
So the switch that was flipped was, I just saw myself like getting up from this fetal position, almost like a wounded warrior. Like I am a warrior, and this is not my defining moment. This is what I was telling myself. This is not my defining moment. My defining moment is getting back up and not just surviving, like I'm going to get through this for what I would call like just to survive.
Sure.
I was like, that's not a high enough bar. Keep in mind, I'm a high achiever.
Yes.
That's not a high enough bar. The bar that I'm going to set for myself from this day forward is, I'm not going to survive just to survive. I'm going to survive to thrive. And I know this is one of your core messages. I'm going to survive to thrive. And I am going to become the best version of myself that I can possibly become, to lead by example for my daughters, to lead by example for the world, and to one day have the courage to share what I have been through, to inspire and motivate other human beings who have either been in this situation and are out and want to make something of themselves. That is my goal. And that was, fast forward now 14 years, it's the basis for my book.
Yes. Pursepective, right? You write purse as a purse.
Yes.
Right? Like a purse that you would carry around.
Yes.
I love it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. And so I was inspired by the phrase, you can't judge a book by its cover.
I love that.
Because, the purse is just a metaphor for that. Someone can walk around with a fancy, expensive handbag, but you don't know the baggage that they're carrying on the inside.
Yeah. Or you don't know that even like maybe their bank account is like completely withdrawn, but they're wearing a Louis Vuitton bag or something,
Exactly.
Which happens sometimes,
It does happen. It does happen.
I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no. And it happens. So it happens on the flip side too. The flip side for me is that I was judged that I had it all together because I always looked put together. So that was also the inspiration for the book, and to not judge others when they don't look put together. I mean, there are
look like a hot mess, but
millionaires that don't dress like multimillionaires. That you would never know.
I know.
You never know.
Absolutely. Actually, most of my, multimillionaire friends, you can't tell from the way they dress that they're multimillionaires. They're like t-shirt, jeans, no name brands whatsoever, or you can't see it, it might be, but it's inside. You can't really see the tag, right? So, Love it. Well, I want to transition into, because what you just said, your story is so powerful. I'm dying to know what happened at the end, but I don't know if we'll have a chance. Maybe at the end you can, kind of complete the loop, because you were taking a test and then all these police are there in the school. So I'm just like, what? That's surreal. It's like a movie, it's like a Hollywood thing. But I want you to take us into the whole framework of resilience.
I'm excited to dive into
resilience. Yeah, because that's how I know you. Relentless resilience is like your thing. So tell us, like, how can we have this? Because as entrepreneurs, if we want to thrive, we have to be resilient, right?
Yes.
But how do you develop that? Because it's not necessarily something you're born with. I believe, as someone who has a growth mindset, I believe we can learn and figure things out along the way, no matter what, no matter how hard it may seem. So how can we learn and develop that relentless resilience?
That's a great question, and one that I have spent the last year really researching. I've been reading a lot of books about this topic, because I was thinking like a year ago, resilience it's like this intangible kind of trait that we think some people are just born with. People that are successful, we see their success, we know who they are by their name, but we don't see that trait being developed. And I was like, I really believe I come from the thought process of every single person. I believe it's part of our human nature. I believe resiliency is part of our human nature. It's just, we just have to develop it. And so I was like, how can I figure out how to take an intangible trait, and teach people how to do it? And I was like, there's got to be a process here, because I've done it so many times in my life, from being the girl on the farm to like getting out of that situation, going to, all that stuff. And so I've spent the last year researching it. So one of the things that and there's many components to it, but this is just the basic overview, is this D.R.E.A.M. It's called D.R.E.A.M. It's an acronym for the steps that it takes to develop resilience for yourself. And so I would be happy to talk about those, but I would
love to hear it. Like at least what it is, so if people want to know more, they can always follow you and, sign up for whatever you might have on this, but at least give us the glimpse to it.
So the glimpse of it is, it's the acronym. It's called decide, and then requirements, affirm, design, examine, affirm, and then manifest. And I say manifest with a caveat, meaning when I'm using the word manifest to kind of fit into that acronym, manifest means taking action. It doesn't mean sitting on the couch and vibing it in.
Yeah.
So I just want to clarify.
I believe that too.
I just want to clarify that.
It's only manifest if you work on them.
Exactly.
I believe in that, like with all my heart. Even like when you pray to God, right? Like I believe, sometimes, some people may not believe in God or a higher power, but even then you have to go take action. He's not going to like rain it upon you, No. You have to go do the work.
Right. Exactly.
And then pray, or, and then, hope and all that stuff. Love it. So decide, requirement, examine, affirm, and manifest.
Yes.
So these are like the 5 steps basically to.
Those are the 5 steps. So like, for example, deciding what you want in all areas of your life and committing to it, not just from an intellectual, like, okay, I'm going to decide I'm going to make $1 million this year. And you say it and you kind of say it like that. Okay, I'm deciding I am going to be a millionaire. But in your heart and soul, you don't believe that that's going to happen. So the decision part has to come from
your heart in a way.
Exactly. So decide, like when I decided I'm going back to school to be a chiropractor, I'm committing to it whole heart and soul. I don't know how it's going to happen. So what happens is that when we decide and commit, and I in my course of this, I tell people, don't worry about the how-to right now. We're going to talk about the how-to when we do letter M.
Yes.
Right now, all you need to focus on is what are you deciding and committing to yourself wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
That's all. That's step number 1.
That.
What are you deciding on? So that's just a little bit more in-depth look at, what does the D really mean? And really it starts with a decision.
Mm-hmm.
Starts with a choice.
I love it. I love it. Well, it's just such a pleasure talking to you, Amy. I can talk to you for hours, but I just want to ask you briefly, what does the word thriving mean to you? Because I know it means something different to everyone, right? What does it mean to you? As an entrepreneur, as a mom, as a human being?
Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
To me, really thriving means, for me, it goes beyond being happy. It's being grateful for, and I know we talk a lot about gratitude, but I mean, certain times in my life, I wasn't always thriving. I really wasn't. And I remember, to be honest, it's like I've sometimes struggled with the not enough mentality and how am I going to make ends meet and how is this going to work? And if you can shift your perspective of really looking at abundance all around you, even like there's an abundance of leaves on the trees. There's an abundance of I have an abundance of clothes in my closet that I don't even wear. If you can look at something and say, there is evidence of abundance, that's thriving to me. Thriving to me is picking yourself up when things don't go as planned.
Mm-hmm. And they never do.
They never do. And the quicker we can bounce back, the more time we can spend on doing things we love. But I think it's just being in every moment, being grateful for every single thing we have. I think that's part of thriving. I don't think it has to do with a bank account, a number in a bank account. I think it has to do, for me anyways, the impact that I'm making in the world. That's thriving to me.
I love it. I love it. Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much, Amy. Where can Thrivers find you? Because I'm sure by now they just want to know more about you. They want to tune into your, Facebook Lives and everything that you're doing, all the awesome stuff.
Primarily, they can find me on Facebook. I have a business page, Dr. Amy Cannatta. I'm going to be doing more live streaming actually from there than my personal Facebook page. So if you want to follow me, you can find me there. Or you can find me on my website at amycannatta.com. And if they want to go there and get the Relentless Resilience framework, all it is amycannatta.com/RR. And they can go there and it's a workbook. It's like a 10-page workbook and guidebook on how they can develop their own resilience.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And also your book, I'm assuming it's available on Amazon?
It
Pursepective?
is.
Okay.
It's on Amazon, and if they go to my website, if you click on Pursepective, there's a thing that says Pursepective. It'll read you right to Amazon. So
that's great. All right, Thrivers. So now you know where to connect with Amy. Go and check her out. And Amy, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your brilliance, your heart with all of us.
Thank you for having me. It was such a great pleasure and an honor.
Thank you. Thrivers, thank you so much for tuning into another episode of the Thriving Entrepreneur Podcast. Until the next time, live on purpose, focus on what truly matters, and keep thriving.
Thank you for tuning in. Join our Facebook group by typing The Thriving Entrepreneur in the search box and connect with Yasmin at yasmininal.com. That's YASEMININAL.com. Till next time, keep thriving.